Hello, everyone. My name is Sarafi, and I'm happy to meet you all. And today, I'm going to be showing you all how to play Gimmick Puppets. Now, I'm sure you've probably heard some slanderous things about Gimmick Puppets, that they're a bad XYZ deck, that they have no good XYZ monsters, that they die to any disruption. I'm here to tell you that this deck will destroy anyone if you know how to play it. The skill is called Relinquished Puppet. Send one level 8 Gimmick Puppet monster in your hand or deck to the graveyard. Then you can play one Gimmick Puppet Destroy from outside your deck. The skill can only be used if you begin the duel with a deck and extra deck that contains at least one monster, and no monsters other than Gimmick Puppets or Dark XYZ monsters, and it can only be used once per duel. Destroy, which we get for free, has the effect where you can target a Gimmick Puppet monster on the field and destroy it. And then when Destroy is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one or two Gimmick Puppet monsters from your hand, and that effect misses timing. So do not expect this card to save you very often. It will activate if it's destroyed by battle, and your opponent doesn't have like a destroy by battle effect that on their monster. But if you link it off, it doesn't activate. If it's so bad. Okay, so we get to special summon any two Gimmick Puppets from our hand. So what Gimmick Puppets do we have? We have our Terror Baby. This is a 3 of, and I did not go deep into this box, so I only have one of it. When this card is normal summon, you can target one Gimmick Puppet monster in your graveyard, except Gimmick Puppet Terror Baby, and special summon it in defense position. You can banish this card from your graveyard. Your opponent can activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your Gimmick Puppet monster effects this turn. Wow, that's a good effect. I wish I had more than one of it. You will mostly use this card to revive the Destroy that you got destroyed, so that you can either link those two monsters together into your Link monster, or XYZ into a rank 4. Either way, it's a really good normal summon, and it's basically your only normal summon, so definitely play it. I'm playing two Gimmick Puppet Eggheads as an additional monster. You should replace these with Terror Baby. Egghead can discard a Gimmick Puppet monster to become level 8. That is a fine effect. It's not that useful. Gimmick Puppet Bisque Doll. You can special summon this card from your hand by discarding a Gimmick Puppet monster. You can banish this card from your graveyard. Your opponent cannot target Gimmick Puppet monsters you control with card effects this turn. That's a really interesting effect. It has a lot of applications, and this card is the card that you probably want to mill most often with either the skill or Condolence Puppet, unless you really need your Dreary Doll. There are so many options with this deck, and it's up to you to find out how to play it. Next up, we have Gimmick Puppet Dreary Doll. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish one other Gimmick Puppet monster from your graveyard to special summon this card. This is a hard once per turn. Cannot be used as XYZ material for an XYZ summon except for the XYZ summon of a Gimmick Puppet monster. That is unfortunate, but it will still usually get you some sort of power on your board and doesn't cost you much. Gimmick Puppet Magnet Doll. Definitely run 3 of these. If your opponent controls a monster and all monsters you control are Gimmick Puppets, you can special summon this card from your hand, not once per turn. So throw out as many as you want, and then XYZ them all into whatever. Junk Puppet. Target one Gimmick Puppet monster in your graveyard and special summon it. You can only activate one Junk Puppet per turn. Technically, this could be Monster Reborn. In fact, it probably should. Updating live. So we'll play one Monster Reborn and one Junk Puppet, because then you can play them both in the same turn, and you don't have as many restrictions. But okay, so one Junk Puppet, one Monster Reborn. These cards will allow you to revive your monsters and make good plays. We're also running Book of Moon and Compulsory Evacuation Device to try and stay alive. And our last card is Condolence Puppet. Send Gimmick Puppet monsters with different names from your deck to the graveyard up to the number of monsters your opponent controls that were special summoned from the extra deck plus 1. So if they have no monsters, you send 1 monster. If they have 2 monsters, you send 3 monsters. They have to have different names, but basically you want to hit at least Bisque Doll and Dreary Doll. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one machine-type XYZ monster you control. It cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects as long as it remains face up on the field. Each effect is a hard once per turn. That's a really interesting effect. Lingering effects are some of the most annoying in the game, and people always forget them. So don't be surprised if you have this monster on the field, you used your Condolence Puppet, then you pass to your opponent, and your opponent tries to destroy your monster with a card effect, and then they just forgot. They literally just waste one of their destruction effects on a card that can't be destroyed. And that will win you the game because they're wasting resources. For your extra deck, we have number 40 Gimmick Puppet of Strings. It has 3,000 attack points, and that's the best thing about it. Once per turn, you can detach one Xyz material from this card, place a string counter on each face-up monster on the field, except this card. That will include your monsters, by the way. During your opponent's next end phase, destroy all monsters on the field with string counters, and if you do, inflict 250 damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. This effect requires Gimmick Puppet of Strings to still be on the field, which is really bad. Now, once we get the rank up card, then this card will actually be really strong, but for right now, it's just a beater. Number 15, Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder. This requires 2 level 8s, and up to twice per turn during your main phase 1, you can detach one material from this card, target a special summon monster your opponent controls, and destroy it. Then if it was an Xyz monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half its original attack points. So, you get to pop 2 cards. Popping 2 cards is pretty good. Now, granted, your monster only has 1,500 attack points, so it probably won't kill your opponent by itself. But if you're facing an Xyz deck, you can probably kill your opponent with extra burn damage. And if you're not facing an Xyz deck, if you're able to get Gimmick Puppet of Strings out at the same time, that's enough damage to kill your opponent. So this is a really good card. It's definitely worth the 1-of slot in the extra deck. Next, we have number 22, Zombie Steen. I haven't summoned this card recently. It was a pretty good option before Dingirsu came out, but now that Dingirsu is here, it's better in almost every situation. Zombie Steen does beat over Chaos Max and Leo Dancer. That's probably the best use of it. It does have a negate, but it requires it to change the defense position, which makes it bad. We are also playing Dingirsu and Sanafon. Just good cards, good generic rank 8s that are. Dingirsu is also a machine, which means that you can Xyz summon it under the effect of Gimmick Puppet Chimera Doll, and you can also give it the benefits of Condolence Puppet. So Dingirsu has a lot of really good synergies with this deck. You can also, because you banish machines with Gimmick Puppet Dreary Doll, you will usually have 3 materials on this Dingirsu as well, which is really good. Sanafon just prevents your opponent from destroying it and also prevents your opponent from special summoning from the graveyard. That can be a fairly strong effect. You don't want to use it on yourself, so basically it's turn 1 or bust. Then we have Gimmick Puppet Chimera Doll. This requires 2 machine-type monsters, and during your main phase, if you control this link summon card, you can activate this effect. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except machine-type Xyz monsters. You also take Gimmick Puppet monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. Then, if all the monsters you control are Gimmick Puppet monsters, you can special summon 1 Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand. But you have to control a Gimmick Puppet monster at resolution, which means that if this is the only monster on your field, your opponent can chain a removal spell to this effect, and then you will get to draw the card, but you will not get to special summon it because you did not have a Gimmick Puppet monster on the field. It's pretty good. Definitely worth, because it has 1,500 attack points, which is all you need to combine with Gimmick Puppet of Strings to kill people, so it will get you there a lot. Lastly, we have Gimmick Puppet Gigantes Doll. This is a very funny card. This requires 2 level 4 Gimmick Puppet monsters. You can detach 2 materials from this card, target up to 2 monsters your opponent controls, and gain control of them until the end phase. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters except Gimmick Puppets, nor declare attacks except with Xyz monsters. You contribute this card. All monsters you currently control become level 8 until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Gimmick Puppet Gigantes Doll once per turn. So you can take 2 of your opponent's monsters, you contribute this card, you can make them both level 8, then you can make them into one of your Xyz monsters and attack your opponent directly. But if you happen to take Xyz monsters from your opponent, you can just attack with those. So, for example, this card is really good against Galaxy Eyes. Nice Neo Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. That's 4,500 attack points. I will take that, and I will attack you directly with it. So this card is very strong, and I hope that you guys enjoy the replays. Let's get in. And we are going second against Magic-Key. Took a while for me to get a Magic-Key game on my channel, but really I haven't had any good ones, except for this one. Activate Magic-Key World, add Mafteal to hand. Then he normal summons Harpy Lady, and he adds Maftea and sets a card. Maftea, send Axe Raider to the graveyard to ritual summon his Betos Buster, which he will then use to add a card from his deck to his hand. He adds the Garrus Glasser. Then he's going to synchro those 2 off. into the Transfer Lamine. Transfer Lamine, set Magic Key Unlocking. Then he activates Advanced Ritual Art. He sends 7 Colored Fish and Clavkiss from the deck to the graveyard to Ritual Summon Garrus Glasser. Alright, so my opponent has a Monster Negate and Destroy, a quick effect to destroy a monster that's summoned, and a Spell and Trap Negate. Alright, so I activate Book of Moon, and I set his Garrus Glasser face down. Then I activate Relinquish Puppet, and I send Dreary Doll from my deck to the graveyard to play Destroy. Then I activate Condolence Puppet, and I send Bisque Doll and Magnet Doll from my deck to the graveyard. Because he controls a monster special summon from the extra deck, I get to send 2 monsters instead of 1. Then I activate Destroy's effect. I will destroy it, and that will allow me to special summon my Dreary Doll. I do not want to special summon Terror Baby because I want to normal summon Terror Baby. I activate Dreary Doll's effect from the graveyard, and I'm going to special summon it by banishing my Magnet Doll. At this point, I've tried to bait out my opponent's destruction effect twice now. He hasn't taken the bait, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to XYZ summon into my Gimmick Puppet of Strings, which has 3,000 attack points, knowing that I have Junk Puppet in hand, so that I can just bait this out and get rid of his monster destruction. Here we go, number 40. This is a real threat, so he's going to go ahead and destroy it. Now I normal summon my Terror Baby. My opponent has no interaction left on the field. His negate is face down on the field. He has a Spell and Trap negate face down, and this card has been used up. So I normal summon Terror Baby, and I will use its effect to revive my Destroy, and then I make Gigantus Doll in the extra monster zone. Then I activate Gigantus Doll's effect, and I get to target 2 monsters my opponent controls, including face-down monsters. So I will take both of his monsters, and because I took control of his Garrus Glasser, I can change its battle position, so I will flip summon it. Now my opponent does not control a Magic Key Ritual monster or a Magic Key monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, so his Magic Key Unlocking can no longer be activated. These 2 monsters are both level 8s, so I will go ahead and XYZ both of them into another copy of Gimmick Puppet of Strings. Then I activate Junk Puppet to revive Gimmick Puppet of Strings from my graveyard, and I will attack my opponent directly, and they surrender. That's the power of Gimmick Puppets. Nothing wrong with a man who plays with dolls when they take control of your opponent's monsters and XYZ summon them for game. Thank you for watching. My name is Sarafi, and I was thrilled to have you all with me.